see you guys in the dark.
I just came out of a relationship and felt like a bit of casual dating will be fun. So I went onto Tinder. I made it clear to the few people that I actually matched with and spoke to that I didn't want anything serious with them, just a dinner date or a pub night here and there. I matched with a really cute guy. Let's call him Pete. He had just moved to my city and also wasn't looking for anything serious. He just wanted to meet some people and see some local spots. The first night we met at a well-known tapas bar. I chose this place because I had a few friends that were waitresses and bar staff there, so I felt pretty safe meeting a stranger here. He was on time. We had nice chats. Really cool guy on first impression. We spoke about work, to which he responded that he's a software developer, but he's just started his freelancing career. We spoke about where he stays now, that he's moved up here, and he said that he's sharing a place with some friends. Rent is quite pricey in this city, so it makes sense to me. He asked where I live, and I told him that I'm lucky to have my own one-bedroom apartment in a quiet, nice, and popular part of town. Mostly thanks to my parents that helped me save and gave me a portion of the deposit money for my 21st birthday, which I invested and grew until I had enough to put down a decent deposit. He then offered to drop me off at home, but I told him no, I'd prefer to Uber home myself. He asked if this was because I'm going to go meet someone else after him. I laughed because I genuinely thought that this was a joke. The next time that I saw Pete was about 3 days later. He said that he knew it was fast, but he actually couldn't stop thinking about me, and he wanted to see me again. This time we met at a different restaurant, also one that I chose because I went to school with the owner and knew all of the staff pretty well. The place is a little bit more pricey, and he got super annoyed with me for ordering as much as I did. I couldn't understand why, since I insisted on paying for my own stuff both times that we met. That night, the same story. Let me drop you off at home, please. Again, I told him no. While we're in the middle of this conversation, he gets a call. He steps away, but I could still hear a fair amount of it. No, I think I'm going to stay with you again. Yeah, I'm with her. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'll be home soon. So now I think he's chatting to his roommate, or maybe his mother, but I don't ask him. He comes back to our table. Please, I insist. Bad things happen to women that Uber home this late by themselves. I'd feel much better if I dropped you off. Not having the energy to argue, I tell him fine, and I put my address into his GPS. As soon as he got home, he messages me, tells me he'll be picking me up in the morning to go for a picnic. I reply that I actually have cleaning to do, but again, he insists that he'll see me at 10 o'clock. Come 10 a.m. that next morning, best believe he's right outside of my apartment. I get into his car, and as he leans over to kiss my cheek, I notice that his breath stinks. Obviously, I'm a little grossed out. We have our picnic, and it's quite nice. He tried to kiss me a few times, but I avoided it with everything in me. By about 4 p.m., I tell him that I really have to go home, and the park we went to is about an hour and a half drive from my apartment, so I couldn't really Uber back home because it would cost a fortune. He agrees that it's time to go. So we get in his car, and we're off. I fell asleep in the car on the drive back, and when I woke up, he asked if we could finish the rest of the bubbly we got for mimosas up at my apartment. I said to him that I don't want to, and he just snaps. He raised his voice and said something along the lines of, "What are you hiding from me? Just be honest. Why are you so desperate to keep me out of your apartment?" I was so confused, I actually just kept quiet. He dropped me off, but I could see his car across from my apartment for about half an hour before he actually left. About 5 minutes after he left, he let me know that he's home safe, and he thinks he's starting to fall for me. So naturally, I'm freaked out, because I made it clear that I didn't want anything serious, and he said that he felt the same. I said to him, if that's the case, I think we should take a break from hanging out with each other. About 5 days later, he messages me, asks if we can go for dinner again. He found an Indian cuisine place he knows I'll love. I tell him it's cool. He should just send me the address. He tells me that he'll pick me up. So 7 p.m. comes around. He tells me that he's downstairs, and as I go down to meet him, I see that he's standing at my gate. I press the remote control to open up the gate, and he walked inside to meet me. Show me which one is yours. I'd love to see how you live. Not hi, not how are you. That's his opening line. So now I'm naturally unsettled. I say to him that I'm starving. Could we just go for dinner? And I'll show him my place at the later stage. At dinner, he gets a call yet again. This time he didn't step away. Pete? Yeah, I don't know. I can't let you know by about 10. He then turns to me. Am I sleeping by you tonight? No, I don't know. I have work tomorrow. Pete says to me, yes, me too. Then back to the caller. I'll let you know, okay? No, you're not. Can you just get your things, please? And do what with them? Take them to that girl you're seeing. I'm done asking you. Now I'm sitting here in absolute shock and terror. What in the fuck is going on here? Our food arrives, and we barely speak. I say to him, why did you ask me if you can sleep over by me? We're not spending time together like that. You know this. He then spins this story about how he just wants to hang out again and see how I live. I then say to him very frankly that I don't like having strangers in my apartment. He gets very touched, and the bill arrives. As per usual, I pay for myself. He pays for himself. I say to him I'll get an Uber home, and he says, what's the use? I already know where you live. Let me drop you off. By now I've already decided that this will be the last time I see him. I get into his car, and I reach for my jumper that I threw in the back when he fetched me. I noticed a bag in the back of the car, full of clothes and toiletries, as well as a pillow. I don't think much of it. I don't personally drive or own a car, but I know my sister always has the most random shit on the back seat of her car. On the way home, he's dead quiet, when suddenly he says, do you know how selfish you are? I've had no issues driving you around, but you don't want me to sleep over by you. I say to him that I've never had an issue with Ubering, and if he's so touched, I also have no issue with paying him what the Uber would have costed me. I'm over this, and I'm not even playing nice anymore. His phone rings again. Your stuff is at the security boom at the gate. Stay with your girlfriend, or stay with your mom. You're fucked for taking advantage of everyone like this. I don't speak to my mom. You know this, you bitch. And then he hangs up. Now I think this is maybe an ex-girlfriend that he needs to collect things from. Before I've even had a chance to process what happened, he turned to me and starts yelling at me. I have nowhere to go. Are you fucking happy? You spoiled little brat. Living off mommy and daddy's money. Getting driven around by me like I work for you. My whole body got stiff with fear. I don't know if I'm going to cry or throw up. In my head, I'm just planning how I'm going to grab my bag the second that he stops and run straight to the cafe under my apartment. If you run through the cafe, you can get to a gate that takes you to the back part of the apartment, and it works with fingerprint access. There wasn't time to still find my keys in my bag, and I didn't want the main gate I normally use to open wide enough for him to get in when I go in. He stops at my apartment, and as planned, I jumped out, run into the cafe, and run back out, through the little gate, up the second floor. My apartment was on the 4th floor, and I hammered on a neighbor's door. I went inside and told her and her husband everything that happened, and asked if they would mind calling the cafe to explain why I ran through with no explanation, and in such a state. I blocked Pete and haven't seen him since. I'm still not sure what his case was. From what I gathered, he was basically homeless, and I think he wanted to get into my apartment to maybe sleep over there for a little while. I'm not sure if the girl that kept calling him was also a Tinder date that let him into her apartment, and he just never left. All I know is that he scared the living daylights out of me, and I never want to see him again. So about 4 years ago, I was doing a year abroad in Switzerland as part of my degree. Just before leaving, my boyfriend and I ended our relationship, as he was off to America and myself to Switzerland. Anyway, I was quite bummed at first, then decided it'd be fun to download Tinder and just piss about and date meaninglessly, as I wasn't going to be there for longer than an academic year. So I went on quite a few dates. Some were god-awful, some were pretty decent people. I was in Geneva, so there were people from everywhere basically. A few months in, I matched with a French guy, and we were chatting for a little while. My French and his English were more or less the same level, so there were a few mild miscommunications, but nothing big. I was 20 at the time, and I had my age preference set to something like 20 to 27. So I've been chatting with this French guy. I'll call him Pierre. For a couple of weeks, he seems pretty cool. He's 27, so a far bit older, and he's a science secondary school teacher at an all-girls school. Remember, this is as it makes it even weirder. So we went for a drink, and he buys us quite a few rounds, which is great because it's Switzerland, and I'm a poor student. By the end of the night, I'm pretty drunk. I remember making out with him, then getting dropped off back at my student accommodation by Pierre. He had been drinking soft drinks after the first. Anyway, I see him a couple other times after this, and he's always pushing the alcohol when we're together. One evening, I slept over as it was too late for me to get back, and I woke up in the morning. He'd taken off my bra while I was asleep. He was wide awake, rubbing my back and staring at me. I hadn't slept with him either. Just been making out so far. Then he told me his mom was coming to visit, and did I want to meet her. I met this guy like 3 times. I decided that I was done with this weirdo, so when I left, I was planning on what to say to get rid of him. Anyway, back home later, I got a text that said something in broken English like, "We slept beautifully." And I just left it on read. Later that evening, I got a call from him, but I just let it go to my voicemail. When I listened to it, he sounded really upset and said that he had to confess something to me because he was falling in love with me and needed to be honest. He revealed that he'd lied about his age. This reminded me of that episode in Friends where Monica accidentally slept with a high school student, thinking he was in his 20s. This guy looked quite young, so I thought he lied and was younger than 27. He's actually 35. I know that's not particularly old, but to date a 20-year-old knowing she thinks that you're young, I find it pretty weird. I blocked him on Facebook and on my phone. Just sort of got on with the last week of term. He turned up at the reception desk one day, having known where I lived, because he dropped me off at home once. The receptionist asked him to leave and informed me he got quite insistent, so they warned me. I didn't hear from him again after this, which was good, and I was flying back to the UK in a week for the Christmas holidays. During the holidays, I got a random Facebook friend request from a pretty legitimate-looking profile, so I accepted it just in case I knew them. Bad idea. I got a huge, great essay about Pierre saying I tracked your flight all the way back home to check that you got home okay. All right, creep. I blocked this other profile and got a message request from another profile about a week later, saying that he had checked flights from Bristol and to Geneva online and decided that I could have chosen a cheaper one closer to term. So he will meet me and we can chat. Now, I don't know if he just turned up at the airport every time a flight from Bristol came in. There are about 2 or 3 a day. But yeah, when I land, and I didn't think that he'd be there because who would be able to guess the exact flight I was on? The minute I come through the gate, I can see him holding a sign with my name on it and some flowers. Luckily, he was distracted at the time, so I managed to slip by and get on the train into the city. My friend was already back, so I told her to meet me, and then we went to the police station because this guy was pretty fucking weird. I didn't have any trouble with him after this, as he probably found someone else to obsess over. But again, he's a teacher, to girls 11 to 18, so gross. Anyway, let's not meet again, Pierre. And I hope that you're still not hanging around that airport. This story all happened in the last 3 weeks, and the final part, hopefully, just took place this morning. So to set the stage, I'm a single dad with a daughter who is about to turn 3. I don't really have time to go out and meet people, but I decided that I needed to put myself out there, so I made a Tinder profile. I had a few decent dates, but nothing too special. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I matched with a new person. She lived about 30 minutes from me and looked pretty cute, so I messaged her. We started talking, and she gave me her number. We texted for a week or so, and things seemed pretty great. We both seemed to be on the same page about things, and that neither of us wanted to rush into anything serious, but having a friends with benefits would be nice. So we decided to spend an evening together. The first evening went pretty well, and we got along great. We did the same things a few days later, and again, everything went fine again. But after about 2 weeks, it became clear that she wanted to start an actual relationship, and I wasn't ready to commit to that. I made that clear, and she seemed to understand and accept it. After some of the things that she said, though, I was seeing some little red flags, and I wasn't sure if she was going to actually respect my wishes and not try to move things forward into a serious relationship. And there were a number of things she said that made me think she was a bit emotionally unstable. So I decided to take a few days to think about things, and decided what I want to do. We had been texting at least a little bit every day, and I felt like the daily contact was not helping to convince her that I was serious when I said that I wanted to take things slow, and not jump into any kind of relationship. So on a Friday morning, I was texting her, and then just kind of stopped replying. I didn't think much about it since I was really busy anyways. She came to my house that night, just showed up unannounced. I was polite and made an excuse about my phone being broken. She claimed that she showed up because she was worried something had happened to me, since I had always replied right away after. But her showing up at my house was another red flag. I figured the broken phone excuse would benefit me, giving me time to evaluate this new warning sign and decide what to do. I told her that I was fine, but that I'd be MIA for a bit until I got a new one. I don't have a home internet connection either, so basically all contact with me would cease until I reinitiated. She seemed to be fine, apologized for intruding on my evening, and left right away. So I didn't give it much thought, other than it reaffirming my concern that she was becoming obsessed. In the next few days, she sent a few messages, basically just checking to see if I got a new phone. There was nothing too crazy, but it was still very worrying, and with everything else, it told me that I needed to cut things off completely. That leads me to last night. It was about 6 days since she had showed up at my house, and I haven't contacted her so far. I was hoping that my silence would send a message, or that maybe she'd forget about me and move on to someone else, but that was not to be. I went to sleep around 12 a.m. and woke up at 6. Upon looking at my phone, I saw literally like 15 message notifications, 6 missed calls, and a voicemail. The text started off saying, "I know you're probably asleep, but I saw you accepted a friend on Facebook 2 days ago, so I wanted to know why you've been ignoring me." And then went to pleading me to answer the phone, and finished with, "If you won't talk to me, I'm going to come to your house." This whole thing took place between 1 and 2 a.m. The voicemail was just her, sobbing into the phone and screaming, "Why are you doing this to me?" Keep in mind, I've known this girl for less than a month, and we've only been on 2 dates in that time. At this point, I was pretty freaked out, so I called a friend of mine asking for advice. My friend told me to just be blunt and tell her that threatening to come to my house in the middle of the night was completely inappropriate, that she's acting crazy, and not to contact me again. So here I am this morning, after sending her a long text, kindly but firmly telling her that her behavior wasn't acceptable, and that she was not to contact me again. So crazy Tinder girl, I really don't want to see you again. Update. For everyone who is worried for my safety, and everyone who sees where I am coming from, thank you, and I'm fine. For everyone who's saying I'm a jerk, I give you that. I should have been honest when she came to my house instead of making up an excuse. I fully admit that. I'm not saying I handled things correctly, but honestly, I would have never written about this in the first place if she had just calmly asked to talk about things. This whole thing happened to me in the middle of the night, so I never even knew she was upset until it was all over. But if you think her reaction was normal, I'll tell you what she said about her own actions. She did reply, apologizing for her actions, saying that she understood why I would not be comfortable continuing things with her after waking up like that, and telling me that she appreciated my honesty, and that she knows that she needs help, and is actively seeking therapy to deal with her issues.
For some context, this took place in June 2018, about 2 weeks before I turned 18. I'm female, and had just finished my A-levels and decided to join Tinder for a joke, just to have a bit of fun and waste time. I thought it would be fun to put my Snapchat in my bio, just to see how many people added me, and I admit I enjoy the attention from guys. People added me, but no one actually messaged me except one guy. I'll keep his name anonymous. This guy was 20, I was 17 at the time, and was about an hour drive away from me. This is important later. We started off just innocently chatting. The conversation was dry, but it killed boredom, so I held the conversation. One day, he randomly popped up asking me, "So, when are we gonna meet then?" I was hesitant at first, but I agreed. in the inn after I ran it over my parents. I invited him over to my house. I don't know what I was thinking, but I told him he could come over. He got there the next day at 9 a.m., bearing in mind he lived an hour away from me. First red flag. I was confused as hell and wasn't even dressed for the day. Nevertheless, I invited him in and finished getting ready. We just chilled and watched films all day before I headed off. Around 2 p.m., we chilled by the beach for a bit before coming back to the house at 5 p.m. I was expecting him to go home after that, but no, he stayed. We watched a couple more films, and every now and then I would look over to him and catch him flat out staring at me. He would lock eyes and would say something creepy like, "I love your eyes," or "I'm so glad I have met you," all while knowing me for all of 8 hours. I regret to say we ended up kissing. A lot I felt awkward in being a naive 17-year-old on her first real date. I thought that was what you were supposed to do. He left at around 10 p.m. He was at my house for 13 hours, but there were no sparks at my end. I was only expecting this to be a one-time thing. Nope, he turned up at 9 a.m. again, like 2 days later. I went along with it because I had nothing better to do. Didn't leave again until 9 p.m. At this point, I had no interest in seeing him again and didn't really feel a romantic connection with him. I will admit, I may have led him on, as I never actually told him I wasn't interested. Looking back now, I should have told him, and maybe the next event wouldn't have happened. My birthday rolls around. Well, the day before, he shows up at 9 a.m. again and takes me out. We go to the mall, and he buys me so much. I keep saying, "No, you don't have to," and "let me buy this," but he insisted because it was my birthday. I had only met this guy twice before and known him all of 5 minutes, and he was buying me so much stuff like clothes, makeup, and, sexy underwear. I was still only 17. Even though my birthday was the next day, I felt like I was being treated like a prostitute. Every time we walked around, he would force my hand into his and try and kiss me. I felt so awkward. Anyway, we would get back to my house around 6 p.m. I come home to flowers from him and that he had delivered to my house. We chill in my room. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. I felt like I couldn't tell him to leave because he had just spent so much money on me. Anyway, he tried to have sex with me, and he kept saying, "Come on, didn't you have a nice birthday? And I came all this way for you." Just creepy stuff like that trying to get me to sleep with him. I just kissed him and told him I didn't want to. I wasn't a virgin, but I definitely didn't want to sleep with him. He finally leaves and just break down crying. I don't know why. I just felt so trapped. I tried and be cold with him over message and stuff for the next few days, hoping to scare him off. Nope. About 3 days after my birthday, I get home from work at 9 p.m. Guess whose car I see parked outside of my fucking house? Yep. I walk in, and he's just sitting, chatting with my family in the lounge. They seem to really like him, even though I'd fucking told them how creepy he was. We ended up going to a local pub and getting drinks. We get back to my house, and I'm pretty drunk. He ordered me spirits, pretty much, even when I hadn't even asked him to buy me a drink. So I suggest more drinks and crack open a bottle of bubbly I saved for my birthday. As we are drinking more, he gets quieter. I look up at him and ask what's wrong, and he suddenly grabs me, kisses me, and tries to put his hand up my skirt. I immediately push him off and stare angrily at him. He then looks at me with a really sinister look and says, "I deserve it." Because he had alcohol, he couldn't drive me home, so he had to stay over. I tell him I'm too drunk and I just want to go to bed. Luckily, my mother happily showed him to the guest bedroom, and I didn't see him again until the morning. I woke up around 9 a.m. and walked downstairs to find him cuddling my cat in the garden. I tell him I had a call from work saying that they need me in about an hour and that he needs to leave. He tried to protest, saying that he'll wait till I'm finished and we can hang out, but I tell him no and that I'm seeing a friend later, which wasn't a lie, but the work lie made him leave quicker, and yet he still protests, saying we can all hang out together. Eventually, he takes no for an answer and leaves. I cry and tell my mom everything. She still likes to tell me that he wasn't that bad to this day, but she didn't have to deal with him like I did. I meet my friend and tell her all about him, and that I'm going to leave in a couple of days and tell him I don't want to see him anymore. However, that same night, I get a lengthy paragraph from this guy professing his undying love to me. Some of the most memorable quotes from this are, "You were my whole world. I'd be nothing without you, and I'm so glad I have met you. I can't wait to share a life together." That was it. I had to be straight up with him. I told him everything, that I didn't feel a connection to him, and that what he did to me when he was drunk was not okay. I even offered to return the things he bought, but he said no. Surprisingly, he actually apologized and said he was sorry for making me feel uncomfortable. Brilliant. Nope. He started stalking me. Anyway, who's got Snapchat will know that you can view a map that tells you where all of your friends are. You can turn it off so people can't see you, but I customize mine so that only people I'm close with can see where I am. He was one of them. I forgot to turn it off, and whenever I went out, he was there about an hour later. Remember, he lives about an hour from me. I first noticed he had followed me after I went to the beach. Same one I went to with him, with my friend. About 2 or 3 hours into our day, we were getting ready to go home. I opened my Snap Maps just so that I could see that me and my friend were together and show her. When I saw who shall not be named with us, his little Bitmoji character, probably like 200 yards away from us, seen just now, my eyes widened. I told my friend that the guy I had been complaining about all day was literally here, now with us somewhere. We both panicked and sped walked to my car and drove home. This happened 2 more times, once again with the same friend, when we visited a reservoir near my town. There was no reason for him to be there, so I messaged him. I asked him what he was doing at the reservoir when I got home. He said he was taking pictures, but the reservoir would have been more like a 3-hour road trip for him to drive, and he had never mentioned photography to me before, so I did not believe in him. It happened a 3rd time, and that's when I blocked him. I was with my goddamn extended family in a restaurant, yet this time he messaged me his location on Snapchat, which is a little thing you can do. He was in the fucking building. I had to then come up with an excuse to tell all my extended family, who I haven't seen for months, why we had to leave. I told my mom the truth, and then she explained to them after. They were understanding. I'd had enough. I didn't even message him again. I blocked him on everything, and I didn't hear from him again.
If you enjoyed this video, Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.